Now there's 80 people dead and 41 people still missing.
During the flash flood?
Yeah.
Oh my god. And that, no. It happens, kid, no?
Yeah.
I think the climate change is really,
It's not climate change. Just
huh?
it's not climate change. It's
No,
weather.
because like, the climate now is not unusual.
Why can't I like comment? Oh, you're on live.
Yeah, I'm alive.
Oh.
So, someone commented, I visited Philippines last year. Why people smell bad there? It's like, I think he's Indian.
Yeah.
You're Indian, you smell bad, not the Filipinos.
It's a dried fish.
Hello.
Oh. Ah.
What's your plan tomorrow?
No plans.
You want to go for a ride?
Maybe.
Oh, he's from Sri Lanka.
Where would you like to go for a ride to?
So wherever you want
Okay.
to feel like just getting out here for a while. I in China. I China.
You're an international star.
Yeah. From Sri Lanka and from China.
And I didn't know people in China could get on Facebook.
Is it banned there?
Yeah, I think it's banned.
It's YouTube.
Oh,
I'm on
you're on
YouTube.
YouTube.
Yeah.
I don't know.
She's waking up her mama.
Report from the federal government, including footage from Jeffrey Epstein's cell the night that he was murdered, along with a full memo detailing their findings.
I know Tom.
Sponsored by both of them.
As asking, do you know Jerry? I know Tom.
Starship Troopers, the mobile infantry
Do you know
force,
Jerry?
out
I know
and
Tom.
Antarctica and
Tom
over.
and Jerry.
Hello.
But what if this wasn't a movie? What if a present-day military unit had to hold whiskey outpost for real? No plot armor, no respawn, just realistic doctrine and the overwhelming firepower of the military-industrial complex. This video aims to answer these questions by applying the planning tools of military decision-making to this infamous sci-fi battle. It will also replace
No.
The human race largely put war behind it, becoming a peaceful, collaborative species that focus on discovery and cooperation rather than conflict. The Earth still became embroiled in interstellar wars now and again,
Behavioral
and few such wars
verification.
more pivotal than the 20th
Oh,
century
hi.
Romulan War. This brutal, 4-year-long conflict caused a dramatic shift in the interstellar politics of the Alpha Quadrant, and it paved the way for the formation of the United Federation of Planets. In this video, we'll take a close look at this mysterious conflict, examining what we know of its background, chronology, and legacy. Welcome to Trek Central, I'm your host, Captain Jack. If you want to keep up to date on the latest Star Trek news, lore, and more, then make sure to hit that subscribe button to never miss a video from the team here at Trek Central. We're enjoying making these Star Trek videos, and we hope you are too. If you want to
By the 15th century BC, Egypt's pharaohs conquered a mighty empire whose frontiers stretched from Nubia to Syria. However, in 1457 BC, a coalition of Canaanite states, led by the king of Kadesh, rebelled against their Egyptian overlords and declared themselves to be independent. The response from Egypt's pharaoh, Thutmose III, was swift and culminated in what has become known to us today as the Battle of Megiddo. Welcome to our video on the first battle in history for which there is any sort of detailed record. Thutmose III is actually making a rare appearance in the modern age through our sponsor, Rise of Kingdoms, and their new Egyptian civilization. This adds to the 12 other civs in this free cross-platform strategy game in which you collect resources, train troops, advance technology, battle your rivals, and build your dream city. Believe over several generations, the inscriptions of later Egyptian pharaohs, as well as the chronicles compiled by scribes and historians, such as Manetho, many centuries later, tell a very different story. According to these sources, the Hyksos were invaders from Canaan, who burned cities and razed temples to the ground, while cruelly oppressing Egypt's native inhabitants. Regardless of the truth of their arrival, the kings of the Hyksos, who constituted Egypt's 15th dynasty, eventually went on to rule a large part of the country for well over a century from their capital at Avaris in the northeastern Delta region. While their grip on northern Egypt was secure, the Hyksos kings could not effectively control the southern portion of the country, and eventually rival dynasties arose to challenge them. One of these, which became Egypt's 17th dynasty, was from the city of Thebes. Its last two kings, Secretary Tau and his son and successor Kamose, led a war of liberation against the Hyksos. Kamose's younger brother, Amos, decisively defeated and chased the last Hyksos ruler out of Egypt, reunifying the country in the process. Perhaps due to such significant events, Amos Menes is recorded by later chroniclers and historians as the first king of Egypt's 18th dynasty.
I'm
and his
reading
reign,
a book
which began around 1550 BC,
of social
as
work.
being the start of the era in Egyptian history known as the New Kingdom. Until that time, Egypt's rulers had been mostly content to simply rule their own country, while establishing trade relations with their neighbors, and the few military campaigns that had extended far beyond the Nile's first cataract in the south, or the frontiers of Canaan to the east, were more punitive raids than attempts to permanently seize territory. By the mid-16th century BC, this policy had changed. The Hyksos' takeover had taught the Egyptians that they were vulnerable to attack, especially from Western Asia. What also must have
Hi,
been alarming to them
Maria.
is that, unlike in the past, there
Hi,
were now
Maria.
several large expansionist states competing for hegemony of that region, including the Mitanni, the Hittites, and the Babylonians, all of whom, should their rulers decide to one day invade Egypt, would almost certainly march their troops through Canaan. Therefore, the pharaohs of the New Kingdom, starting with Ahmose I,
It's not a homework,
launched
it's
policy
a
of
book.
eastern
I'm reading
expansion
a
and
book.
conquest to control the petty states of Canaan and use them as a buffer against the larger empires to the north. The third pharaoh of the 18th dynasty, the warrior king Thutmose I, who arguably ruled between 1506 to 1493 BC, expanded Egyptian control into Nubia and deep into Syria up to the Euphrates River, obtaining the allegiance of many Canaanite and Syrian princes along the way. However, once Thutmose
Yes,
left,
I'm from
many of them
Philippines.
refused to send tributes to Egypt. Though rebellions in the Levant were put down under the relatively short reign of his successor, Thutmose II, Egypt's grip on its farthest imperial possessions was quickly slipping away. It would fall to his son, Thutmose III, to reverse the tide and solidify Egyptian control of Canaan and the lands up to the Euphrates in Syria. Most scholars today believe that the pharaoh who would become Thutmose III technically
Okay,
became ruler of
okay.
Egypt around 1479 BC at the age of 10.
Huh.
Since he was just a child, his stepmother, Hatshepsut, who was also his aunt, was designated to rule as regent in his stead until the young Thutmose III came of age. Hatshepsut was an extremely
Oh,
powerful
really?
woman, for not only was she the daughter of the great Thutmose I, but also the widow of her half-brother, Thutmose II. By the 7th year of her regency, she had assumed the title of Pharaoh of Egypt, and although Thutmose III was co-ruler, the true power in Egypt was in the hands of Hatshepsut. Hatshepsut commissioned the construction of many new buildings and expanded others all over Egypt and parts of Nubia, including the great Temple of Karnak and her mortuary temple at the site of Deir el-Bahri. She also sponsored large trade expeditions to faraway countries, the most well-known
Okay, I
being
don't have a
said to be
school.
land
I'm
of
only
for the
studying.
acquisition of myrrh, ivory, and gold. By nearly all accounts, Egypt during Hatshepsut's rule was a very prosperous country. However, her apparent lack of attention to military matters has led to many of Egypt's vassals, including its client kings in Canaan, to gradually obtain more autonomy for themselves. In the far corners of the empire around the Syrian frontier, resentment towards Egypt had been growing amongst the rulers of several of its client states, who saw no reason why they should be forced to swear allegiance and pay tribute to the pharaoh in a faraway land. It's also likely that many of them had been persuaded into becoming allies of the rising northern Mesopotamian power known as the Kingdom of the Mitanni, that at the time had been expanding westward towards the Mediterranean, and also sought to control northern Canaan. Upon the death of Hatshepsut in January of 1458 BC, Thutmose III immediately assumed his position as the sole ruler of Egypt.
Wow, who is that
Believing that the new,
watching?
young, and untested pharaoh
I
would be weak,
subscribe you.
the
Thank
king of
you.
the city
Tung
of
tung
Kadesh
tung tung
led a coalition
sahur.
of Canaanite kings to revolt against their Egyptian overlords. To
Tung
make
tung
matters
tung
even worse,
sahur.
he had also gathered together his allies and assembled a large army at the fortress city of Megiddo, seemingly with the intention of moving further south and closer to Egypt. Megiddo was important because it controlled Egypt's access to the main trade route between Egypt, Anatolia, and Mesopotamia, now known as the Via Maris. The exact size of the Canaanite army that the king of Kadesh had organized isn't known, but it's estimated to have numbered at least 10 to 15,000 men. The bulk of the forces consisted of infantry, armed with spears, short swords, and axes. But there would also have been archers, and perhaps as many as 1,000 chariot units amongst them. They were not just fighting men from Canaan,
I'm just
but
reading.
also from northern Syria, Mesopotamia, and southern Anatolia. Though Thutmose III had gained some military experience
Are you blind?
commanding the armed forces during Hatshepsut's reign, he had not been tested in such a dangerous and volatile situation, but he welcomed the opportunity to prove himself as the protector of Egypt. During what was probably the spring of 1457 BC, he assembled a large army at the fortress of Syl in the eastern delta along the Egyptian border. Though estimates vary, most scholars put the number of soldiers at between 10 to 20,000 men. Most of these would have been infantry, armed with swords, axes, and carrying shields. There were also chariot units that would have been manned by nobles with archers. Though the specific number of chariots isn't given, it's estimated to have been anywhere from 1 to 2,000 units. Traveling with the army was Thutmose's personal scribe, Janeni, who would keep a journal of events during the actual campaign. Janeni's journal of this and other campaigns would later be the basis of the detailed annals of Thutmose III that were inscribed on the walls of the Temple of Ammon at Karnak. It's these, along with other supplementary inscriptions found on various stelae, that have helped scholars to piece together the events of the Battle of Megiddo
I like
and other
you
military campaigns
with
during the
light.
reign of Thutmose
Thank
III.
you.
From Syl, the Egyptian army quickly
Self-confidence. Life cycle, eco map, social context, diagram. Oh, hi. Oh,